Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Houston, Texas at the Houston Astrodome for another championship event on the U.S. Harvard Association National Event Trail. This one is the U.S. Harvard Association Championship Mud Bog Racing and Thrill Show Spectacular. I'm Brett Kepner, and along with Shelley Herman, we'll be presenting one of the wildest shows in the U.S. Harvard Association Trail so far this year. And, Shelley, we've got a lot of different activities here this evening.
Lots of thrills tonight. There's going to be both men and women who are going to be dazzling us with their craziness.
Indeed. As a matter of fact, we have one of the top motorcycle jumpers in the business here tonight trying for an indoor record.
Ernie Adams, who's going to not only try for an indoor record, but he's going to be jumping 20 cars. First time he's tried it indoors.
But, of course, we have two different categories of U.S. Harvard Association's incredible mud racing championship action, the super modified category and the tractor tire division. And we'll be back with the start of championship racing here at the Houston Astrodome in just a moment. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Houston Astrodome, and we are ready to start competition here at the U.S. Harvard Association Mud Bog Racing and Thrill Show Spectacular. Thrill shows, demolition derbies, and the first run of mud bog racing in the super modified category with the winningest mud bog racer in U.S. Harvard Association history, Clay Langley, and the Nitro Express from Miskey Cams on the line. A brand new supercharger in his first national event on top of his 331 cubic inch Chevrolet. As he makes the first pass through this 90-foot-long mud pit, Clay sits her down at the end of the pit, not muddy at all. And like I said, this is the first time ever with a supercharger, Shelley.
Well, we'll see if that really makes a difference, because in his past performances, he really has proven himself. But I know everybody's always trying to make him bigger and better and faster and stronger.
Well, on the slow-motion replay, you can see Clay Langley's machine having a little bit of problem off the starting line, but once it hit the middle of the pit, down around the 50-foot marker, he got up on top of the mud. A rough ride, but still power going to all four wheels, and that's what Clay was hoping for. Well, the second man up here in the super modified category is a driver we've seen before on U.S. Harvard Association's televised coverage of super modified mud racing events. This is Larry Jarrett from Perry, Oklahoma, who is one of the toughest in the south central and southwestern part of the country with this almost sprint car chassis machine. Underneath that cowling, however, is a supercharged, fuel-injected, methanol-burning 468 cubic inch Chevy big block that makes this thing one of the strongest in the business, Shelley.
Well, being that he's 48 years old, he's only been at...
And that's why that man is so tough. Unbelievable run here in the early going of the super modified category, and Larry Jarrett's supercharged alcohol-burning sprint car blasts through this 90-foot pit with one of the best runs you could hope to see. Here on the slow-motion replay, look at this thing, Shelley, just skimming the mud. In fact, the left front wheel never really on the ground for most of the run. The elapsed time, 2.23 seconds. An excellent run here on this 90-foot pit, and that will take the #1 spot easily. Here is the first supercharged entry of the super modified category. A hometown racer, Shelley, from Troop, Texas. This is Kenny Slider.
It's hard to say whether it's hometown or not. This is such a big state.
That's true. He may be a Texas racer, but he could have traveled 400 miles to get here. The Painful Pleasure, 1980 Jeep CJ7. An aluminum body on a home-built frame with a supercharged, fuel-injected, methanol-burning 427 Chevy, developing over 1,300 horsepower, the first of the blown big blocks in U.S. Harvard Association competition at this event. You know, we were talking earlier about one of the most popular racers on the U.S. Harvard Association Trail, Mike Erderly and the Mud Shark 1964 Corvette. He is here at the Houston Astrodome for the Mud Bog Racing Spectacular and has drawn again the dead last starting spot. So we'll see the Mud Shark later on. And the transmission goes away big time, no power to the front wheels at all, and Kenny Slider just sent that supercharged Chevrolet up to about 12,000 RPM. Boy, I'll tell you, that's a sound you don't hear very often. You can see the U.S. Harvard Association event director, Jim Harris, walking up to the side of the course, asking what happened, and Larry's smiling. He must know what happened. On the slow-motion replay, you can see a great start, but boy, the machine only had power for about 30 feet. Then it just died immediately. You can see the smoke coming out of the motor as it hits astronomical RPM numbers. But that was the shortest run probably of Kenny Slider's life, Shelley.
And I hope that's the shortest. I hope he does better next time.
This is very easily done. All you have to do is...
Well, on the starting line, a pretty incredible little piece of equipment called attitude adjustment. This is Darren Matthews from Mass Point, Mississippi, with a very, very short wheelbase piece of equipment. A 1979 Toyota with a 390 cubic inch Ford wedge motor. It's incredibly light for a full-body truck, only 2,500 pounds, Shelley. We pointed out on previous shows that the U.S. Orbit Association this year is mandating a kill switch on every vehicle. Well, the attitude adjustment machine makes it across the finish line, but certainly had to work to get there. You can see that that is a solid 36 inches of mud down there at the finish line. As soon as Matthews got out of the throttle, that truck sank down below the hubs. On the slow motion replay, you can see that it looked like Darren Matthews never really got the power he needed off the starting line. The machine just kind of plowing through the pit. Although it did dart around a little bit, he managed to keep it on a pretty straight course, even though, as you can see at this point, at about the 60-foot marker, it was just about completely sideways. The elapsed time, however, much slower than he would have hoped for. Not enough for Darren Matthews to threaten the leaders here at the Houston Astrodome. From New Orleans, Louisiana, the Mudbuster, Steve Sewell.
That sure is a fine-looking car, too. I noticed that the tires on it, though, it looks like the ones in the front might be smaller. Yeah, as a matter of fact, a lot of the drivers are switching over to smaller front tires because of the fact that these cars are so fast nowadays that the front tires spend very little time in the mud. So they're applying most of the power to the rear wheels. In fact, the front differential is smaller. It doesn't handle as much power. The front wheels are pretty much nowadays just going along for the ride. Well, I hope it helps because he's flipped this car before. This is only the 4th time straight.
An excellent run. There's no question about that. The 22-year-old from New Orleans, Louisiana, in the unique Ford Thunderbird. Blasts across the finish line with a run that should surely be in the 2-second zone, Shelley. And that'll be enough to put him up there with the leader, Larry Jarrett. On the slow motion replay, Shelley, the machine darts around a little bit on the starting line.
And it looks like there's some ruts that are starting to form, too, so that makes steering extra difficult.
Against the time to beat of Larry Jarrett's 2.23-second number one pass right now, 3.20 seconds, will only put Steve Sewell in the number 8 position. So the Mudbuster heads back to the pits, and we'll be back with more championship mud racing and thrill show action from the Houston Astrodome in just a moment. In Astrodome, and we're ready to get underway with more action. The longtime mud racer from the state of Texas, Jerry Rogers, on the line. The mark to beat still 2.53 seconds by Oklahoma killer Larry Jarrett.
Just waiting for the okay to go.
Tremendous run! Absolutely phenomenal run for Jerry Rogers, and the Texas fans love that one. That may be good enough to take the number 1 spot away from Larry Jarrett. And Shelley, that run looked like it was getting down around the low 2-second zone that a lot of drivers anticipated seeing here tonight.
Yeah, and just as he was coming off that, too, he started to get a little sideways. I got a little worried about him there.
I'm sure on the slow motion replay, we'll see that the left front wheel was never on the ground down near the finish line. Here's the pass. You can see him leaving the starting line, heading for the finish line all over the place.
Whoa.
Watch that left front wheel airborne as he gets sideways, then locks up the brakes when the kill switch automatically shuts down the engine. The elapsed time, 2.27 seconds, just 0.04 of a second behind our leader, Larry Jarrett, in the locomotion. Back on the starting line, Larry Kalikas with the outrageous Corvette called Outrageous. A 1982 Chevy Corvette, all fiberglass and aftermarket body panels of this machine. The 454 cubic inch big block Chevrolet, carbureted on methanol with nitrous oxide injection, Shelley.
And he isn't the only Corvette that's running this evening.
That's true. We still have Mike Erdely and the Incredible Mud Shark to go here at the Astrodome. The tires dig in, bouncing around on some of the ruts there, and it looked like the machine may have actually been knocked out of gear when it came down from that wild airborne jump at about the 70-foot marker. A wild, wild ride for the outrageous Corvette from Kenner, Louisiana. That's going to be an interesting shot on the slow motion replay. You can see the track crew out there talking with Larry, the 28-year-old behind the wheel of this home-built monster. Here's the slow motion replay. Now you see the machine take a little bit of a left-hand turn off the starting line, but watch for the big bump. Yeah, bouncing all over the place there, and he still gets back into the throttle to make it across the finish line, but it certainly would have cost him in elapsed time. One of the most unique machines you could ever hope to see at a U.S. Orbit Association national event. Shelley Herman, take a look at this thing. An AMC Gremlin, the Maniac, here on the starting line, without a doubt one of the most unusual pieces of equipment you will ever see. Waiting for the signal to fire up and run. Jerry Richter and Ricky Richter. Brother team from Dibo, Texas, and the 20-year-old now moves up and takes the starting line. What? Unbelievable ride for the AMC Gremlin with Chevrolet motivation. Absolutely incredible pass. Shelley, I don't think anybody would have expected that machine to run that quick.
Well, certainly not me, but the fans sure were eating it up.
On the slow motion replay, a wild dodge, airborne halfway through the pit, airborne again at the finish line, bouncing around through the shutdown area. The elapsed time, 3.08 seconds, well off the current mark of 2.23 seconds, the time to beat. He'll finish at the number 7 spot, at least for the time being. In the Lone Star State, mud racing knows several strong racers, but here is one of the best down south. This is Jim Tollison from Bivens, Texas, a 44-year-old racer who's been doing this for many years. And Shelley, the Sandpacker, using a 509 cubic inch nitrous-injected Chevrolet, is a powerful ride.
Well, you know, it's such a contrast to see that short little Gremlin car and now this big long body, to see what kind of a difference it'll make for the driver and, you know, the machine.
Well, as opposed to the Gremlin, 2,900 pounds, this machine weighs about 2,500 pounds, 400 pounds lighter with an awful lot of power. Like I said, the 44-year-old logging contractor from Bivens, Texas, has been doing this a long time. He knows how to get down this track. A great run, and actually heading over towards the side boundary, and it looked like Tollison may have gotten out of the throttle to keep from going out of bounds on that run. It didn't sound like he got out of the throttle, but he was dangerously close to going off the race course. On the slow motion replay, you can see Tollison going right into the ruts, whether intentionally or not, just skimming the mud, airborne near the finish line, and he's out of the ruts at that point and shuts it down right about the 90-foot marker. Well, Tollison's Sandpacker machine manages to record a 3.07 second elapsed time, and by 1/100th of a second, that'll put him in the 6th spot behind Jerry Richter's earlier 3:08. The flagman stands ready as the next machine gets ready to continue action here in the super modified category. On the starting line is one of the best in U.S. Harmon Association Super Modified Mud Racing, a member of a two-man team, both brothers, who have dominated action in the last 2 years. This is Bud Crum from Kansas City, Kansas, brother of Ken Crum, the man who's campaigned the spoiled brat Subaru in U.S. Harmon Association competition for so many years, with his 1986 Jeep CJ utilizing a, believe it or not, a 410 cubic inch AMC engine. Shelley, there aren't many drivers who haven't switched to a Chevrolet or Ford engine in this sport.
Well, they're keeping it all in the family, too, because his son, Kevin, is also a racer.
That's true. Both Ken and a big fireball on the starting line, a little bit of a carburetor fire as well. And they're going to have to grab the fire extinguishers there on the side of the track. You can see event director Jim Harris and the other crews moving up, but obviously Bud takes care of it himself with the onboard fire extinguisher required by these machines in U.S. Harmon Association rules and regulations. What a rough way to go. It didn't look like a problem with the nitrous oxide system aiding the fire. It just looked like a carburetor backfire more than anything else. If it had been an intake valve hanging open, we would have seen a much larger explosion, Shelley. We're back at the U.S. Harmon Association Mud Bog and Thrill Show Spectacular. We're still in the first round of super modified category mud racing. Shelley on the starting line is a guy who is well known in the championship U.S. Harmon Association Mud Racing Trail. This is Ken Crum, the other half of the Crum Brothers Mud Racing team. As a matter of fact, this is Ken Crum's vehicle with Kevin Crum, his son, doing the driving.
Well, we'll see if Dad does better than, if son does better than Dad tonight.
Indeed, the No Respect machine, the 1984 Jeep CJ7. And normally we see Ken Crum's spoiled brat Subaru. This machine, no supercharger, just a 454 Chevrolet, carburetors, gasoline, and nitrous oxide injection. You see the DOT street legal tires required on these machines, no taller than 44 inches high. Crum leaves the starting line and something goes wrong. The machine falls out of gear. A lot of steam coming off the exhaust headers, and Crum's weekend has not been what they had hoped. That's 2 straight Crum family entries that have failed to make it to the finish line, Shelley. You know, everywhere we go in the U.S. Harmon Association Mud Racing Trail, the consistency of the mud and the type of the track is different because of the different soil around the country. Here in Houston, it's somewhat sandy, and you can see on the starting line on the slow motion replay of Crum's launch, the machine did have some tire spin to speak of, but then you can see Kevin looking down, and obviously the machine did fall out of gear. Something going way in the transmission. Shelley, this is a machine I've been waiting to see. You know, there's so much drag racing influence in U.S. Auto Association mud racing nowadays. It's about time somebody built a 1923 T Ford altered. This one powered by a 428 cubic inch Cobra jet Ford, carbureted with nitrous oxide injection. This is the stud from Metairie, Louisiana of Mike Pacina.
Take a good look at this.
And a lot of fire and smoke at the finish line as it looked like the machine had a backfire problem. I will tell you this much, it almost seemed like Pacina's 1923 T Roadster was actually too low for this pit. He didn't have a very strong starting line launch, and the machine started to sink, even though this is a relatively shallow mud bog at 36 inches at its deepest point.
It looked like he was chugging along there towards the end.
The machine definitely could not get traction. On the slow motion replay, you can see the starting line launch not exactly its best, but there you can see the chassis hitting the rut peaks underneath. That slowed Pacina and the stud 23T Roadster down a bunch. Boy, he had a lot of problems with the ruts down at the finish line as well. Mike Pacina's stud machine records a 4.11 second elapsed time. That'll keep him well out of the top 10. But if nothing else, like I said, there's so much drag racing influence in these machines now. A lot of these drivers going to the altered class. Well, from Richardson, Texas, here's Ray Henson, one of the oldest active drivers in U.S. Auto Association competition. And old is not a disability in this sport. The more mud bogs you run, the more you know how to make them run. Now, staged up on the line and waiting for the green flag. Ray Henson from Richardson, Texas, leads the line, almost out of the pit, sideways. He brings it back into the mud. And Henson is the first driver of this particular U.S. Auto Association national event to be disqualified for going out of the pit, but the crowd loved every minute of it.
What a wild ride.
Here's the replay. Watch this ride. All four wheels out of the pit at least one time. Now out of bounds, but he never gets out of the throttle. Stays in it, cuts back into the center of the track. Ray steers her straight and ends up pointing the right way. The elapsed time, although unofficial, 3.53 seconds. But like I said, we'll be getting a measurement of that run. Incredible chances are Jeep of Bubba Clements from Atlanta, Texas. Clements has only been involved in the U.S. Auto Association National Event Tour for 2 seasons. He's only been racing 3 years total in this sport. But at 32 years old, this man is driving one of the most powerful vehicles in the southern portion of the United States. A supercharged, fuel-injected, 557 cubic inch Ford motor in an all-aluminum, hand-built aluminum body and chassis Jeep. Staged and ready, waiting for the green flag to come up. Bubba Clements leads the line. He's on a good one. Straight and true. He gets sideways in the shutdown area, but that won't disqualify the run.
The fans are going crazy here, too.
And rightfully so. The Texas racer, one of the best runs of the night, and it came to pass that he did have enough power to make his own tracks going through there, Shelley. On the slow-mo replay, watch this thing. It will just skim the mud all the way down and not even pay attention to the ruts. A little bit of a bounce about the 15-foot marker. And on the starting line next, indeed, a pretty outrageous piece of equipment, and it's running into problems. A very, very slow launch for this incredible Chevy love truck of Don Lemke, the Netherlands, Texas racer in the double trouble 1971 Toyota. Bounces around near the finish line after a rough starting line launch using a 396 cubic inch Chevrolet power plant. Not one of the best efforts for this guy. On the slow motion replay, you can see after it spun, it hooked up pretty good, even though it shot over to the right-hand side of the pit. He managed to correct, keep it down in front, and take this extremely heavy 3,400-pound 71 Toyota through the finish line. The supercharged machine on the line. 468 cubic inches of blown Chevrolet. Supercharged, fuel injected, no nitrous oxide injection, but still 1,400 horsepower in this all-fiberglass early model Corvette Roadster. Early out of Walkerton, Indiana, always the crowd favorite, known for the wildest rides in the business. It'll either be number one or it'll go sideways trying. More horsepower than anybody knows what to do with in this machine. It is like riding the wildest fucking Bronco in the state of Texas. The echo reverberating through the Houston Astrodome as Early waits for the green flag, and the supercharged Corvette leads the line on a good pass. Bounces, and the body comes apart. Absolutely incredible as Early goes across the finish line airborne. The landing hard enough to break the body in half. And once again, the Mud Shark proves to be the wildest vehicle in the sport.
He sure seems happy with that run, even though he lost part of his tail there.
On the slow motion replay, nailing the throttle. It takes a few feet for this machine to kick in, but then it starts getting literally airborne sideways all the way down the pit. There's the hit that put it airborne, bouncing hard and splitting the body in half. Mike Ridley, the incredible Mud Shark, never fails to be the most spectacular machine in the sport. We're back at the Houston Astrodome in Houston, Texas, and we are into Demolition Derby action as we kick things off with a three-segment Demolition Derby contest that should prove to be pretty wild. And Shelley Herman, this is the ladies' competition.
Well, I could believe it. I live in L.A. This looks pretty normal by L.A. standards. What's different about the women out here tonight?
Well, nothing at this point. You know, you'll get a chance to see a tremendous amount of diverse machinery in the Demo Derby competition. But by far, the most popular types of vehicles in Demolition Derby racing today, which, by the way, is a pretty major sport, are Ford and Chevrolet station wagons. It looks like the number 27 Chevy wagon has an advantage at this point. The number 13 Black Widow of Carol Shanks also looks pretty strong. There it is. Good close shot of Carol. Now, there is a time limit in Demolition Derby racing. In this particular case, will be a 30-minute time limit.
Oh, and the Red Hot Mama sure took a hit.
Like I said, the number 27 machine of Terry Gorby is looking real strong. There's the number 36. That appears to be a Buick station wagon, the Alameda, Texas Auto Parts sponsored machine, driven by Cynthia Ayler, and she's doing pretty good herself.
Now, do they ever have teams of people that will purposefully gang up on somebody? Say if somebody looks like their car's in real good shape, a couple people team up and gang up on one person?
Well, it's certainly an easy way to get another car out if you can put your efforts and two or three other people's towards it. But like I said, you've got to protect the front end of the car. The easiest way to put a competitor out is simply to hit them in the front end. And so far, the ladies, like I said, these girls do this quite often. They're not rookies by any stretch. The ladies so far have done a fantastic job of protecting the front end. Nobody has really been hit in the front end yet except for the number 58 Cadillac of Brenda Stenson, who looks like she is probably out of the action right now. Looking at the big Buick wagon, there's the number 58 Cadillac. It looks like it's... Oh, there's a great shot by the Black Widow of Carol Shanks. And there's another great front-end hit by the maroon machine that we talked about earlier, number 27, Terry Gorby. But look at number 13, the Black Widow, taking out the Chevy Monte Carlo. And there's the Black Widow doing it to number 23. Carrie Walker, making sure she's out of the show. But then the 86 Chevy Caprice comes right back around. Amber Gustafson manages to put a shot on Carol Shanks' front end in the big black Chevrolet. It's interesting to note that of the 5 cars still running, all but one is a station wagon.
Now, what kind of safety features do these women have? I see they're wearing helmets.
Indeed, they must wear helmets. The doors must be welded shut on these cars. In fact, most of them are welded shut and chained shut together. There you see the number 13 Black Widow of Carol Shanks making another good hit on the number 86 entry of Amber Gustafson. The last non-station wagon left in the field looks to be a Chevrolet Caprice of late 1970s vintage, taking a big hit. Well, I'll tell you, you can see the back end of the Black Widow buckle up on that hit. The crowd loves it. But Carol Shanks is making serious way on the number 86 Chevy Caprice. Look at her swinging that back end around. She's lost a lot of space in the rear of the Black Widow, but she is going to chase Amber Gustafson all the way around the floor of the Houston Astrodome. She has to.
Now, when is it okay for someone to get out of the car?
You never, ever get out of the car, no matter what happens, unless it is on fire and a red flag has been thrown by the official flagman. You are required to stay in that car until the end of competition. You know, it's interesting. We see a couple of cars already so far that we thought were out of the competition that apparently were just sitting for a little while. The number 58 Cadillac, which we thought was out of the show, Brenda Stenson, is running again.
It's running, but I think only on 3 tires.
Yeah, it's got some serious front suspension problems, as you can see in that shot right there. And you can see a front-end hit has caused the car to start overheating. And now the number 95 machine of Christine Mazel puts a solid hit on the number 58 Cadillac of Brenda Stenson. Don't think the Coupe de Ville has long to go here, Shelley.
I don't think so either.
Well, these two have been going at it throughout this competition. The number 86 Caprice of Amber Gustafson, another strong hit, and the number 13 Black Widow of Carol Shanks have really been putting on a show here. It seems like a 2-woman rivalry going at it here.
They're dancing around out there.
The crowd definitely loves to watch the techniques used by these ladies. There's a solid hit by the number 27 machine of Terry Gorby that we were talking about earlier. Still, the Black Widow of Carol Shanks and Amber Gustafson's number 86. They're just going at it left and right out there. Look at those two. Number 95, a Chevy Malibu station wagon of Christine Mazel still running.
Now, we started off with a field of 9 cars here. Is it advantageous? Whoa!
That's the classic freeway hit there.
Crunch. Is it more advantageous to start out with a certain number of cars or just however many you want to play?
Well, the more cars you get at a playing field, the less speed you will get for impact because there's so many cars. Look at that, a 4-way crunch out in the center of the field there. You get a chance to look at it. And I think the number 58 Coupe de Ville and the number 5 Chevy station wagon. No, Brenda Pounds is out of it. Boy, these ladies are getting serious now. The crowd is loving every minute of it. It's amazing that these ladies have been able to come back. Ooh, major hit there into the number 5 machine of Brenda Pounds, who we thought was out of it. She managed to get the car fired back up, but you can see a lot of steam out of the radiator there. These cars literally were some of the most spotless demo derby cars we have ever seen when they started this competition. Every one of the cars involved in competition tonight, which includes some 40 vehicles in 3 different classes, was literally immaculate. No dents, no rust. These were good-looking cars.
I think
there's a beautiful close-up shot of the perfect reverse hit by the number 36 Buick station wagon being driven by Cynthia Ayler, who, as you can see, has managed to keep the number 36 Almeida Auto Parts machine pretty much in good condition. And we may have a hookup problem here. No, it looks like the Big 8 Speedway car is out of the picture. No, it's still running, and we've got a battle still between the number 13 and 36 entries.
Every time you say someone's out, I think it gives them just that extra oomph.
Well, look at the Black Widow. She's trying to crank that machine over. Carol Shanks working the starter. You can see the black smoke coming out of the pipes, and it will not start. In fact, we're down to 2 cars running right now as Carol Shanks and the number 13 cannot get refired. And there goes a hit on the Black Widow by Cynthia Ayler, and that may have been enough to put Carol Shanks and the Black Widow out. That brings us down to these 2 cars. One more hit, though, by Cynthia Ayler. She wants to make sure the Black Widow is out of this program. No, the Black Widow is running again.
And getting out of Dodge.
Look at that thing. They can't put it out. It's amazing. Cynthia Ayler in the red and white machine.
You know, this has to take a tremendous amount of upper body strength for the women to be cranking the wheel like that.
No question about it. And most of these cars have the power steering belts removed because it's just one more thing that goes wrong. It looks like we have reached the time limit, and the officials are out on the floor.
With 3 cars still eligible to win.
That's right, but like I said, there is a time limit. There is always a time limit. At indoor events, but it looks like they have put the program into a showdown. They have extended the time period. The green flag is being waved. So it looks like the officials have decided to let the ladies slug it out rather than call it a 3-way draw. Boy, there is literally nothing left at the back of the number 5 Chevrolet at the top of your screen. But the Black Widow still keeps motoring along as well. The red and white Buick of Cynthia Ayler is still the best looking piece out there as far as minimal damage. Although I don't think minimal really fits any of the cars out there.
But look at the front end of 36. Cynthia's car is virtually unscathed.
And that proves that the lady knows what she's doing because that's what she wants to protect the most. But now the bumper coming off of the Black Widow. Carol Shanks' machine once again loses fire. The Black Widow trying to be started up, gets hit while she's trying to start it up. So Cynthia Ayler hopes that that hit will put the Black Widow out of the field for good. Meanwhile, the Big 8 Speedway machine of Brenda Pounds sits by the wayside as Cynthia Ayler makes one more hit on the Black Widow.
I can't see how the Black Widow can come back after that.
Hey, we've seen it before. No question we've seen it before. Now we're down to 2 drivers as the officials have extended this time period into a sudden death playoff, as it were. And wait a minute, the Big 5 machine cannot start. Cynthia Ayler makes a solid hit. And the crowd is loving every minute of it. Cynthia Ayler, the last car running. No, the Big 5 machine starts up. And she's got to keep it within the boundary lines. Oh! And she's within a 6-inch distance of being out of the park. Unbelievable job. The Black Widow, by the way, apparently cannot start up, so it is officially down to these two cars. Question is, can the red and white Buick of Cynthia Ayler outlast Brenda Pounds, number 5? Buick versus Chevrolet station wagon. And it looks like Brenda Pounds, the number 5, cannot move under her own power. It looks like it may be over, Shelley Herman.
Well, Cynthia's going to take another run at it just to make sure that...
There's the red flag from the number 5 machine. Cynthia puts in one hit for good measure, but Cynthia Ayler in the Almeida Auto Parts Buick station wagon takes a win. Listen to this crowd. Well, down on the floor of the Houston Astrodome here in Houston, Texas, is Ernie Adams, a 480cc motorcycle that will take this man up a takeoff ramp at one of the fastest speeds ever for a motorcycle jumper. Shelley Herman, this young man's got his work cut out for him here on his first jump attempt.
I had a chance to talk to him before he got all suited up for this run, and he really approaches this a lot differently than a lot of the other drivers.
Adams now ready to make his first attempt at this distance, Shelley, if I'm not mistaken, 100 feet even over 16 tons. But right now, Ernie Adams is heading out of the Houston Astrodome, and as the crowd gets ready, Ernie Adams brings it onto the floor, hits the ramp, leaves, and airborne almost to the end of the catch ramp. Listen to the crowd. He was shooting for 100 feet. That was an easy 130, Shelley.
He makes it look so easy.
Such perfect form, and he was right. There is no real violent point at all on that jump. An absolutely incredible jump for Ernie Adams, and I don't even think Ernie thought that he could go this incredible distance. He was shooting for 135 feet, remember, and the machine already landed at 155 feet. I think he honestly could have jumped 20 or 21 cars in this particular battle. What an incredible performance for a young man who is trying to gain a name in national event competition. If nothing else, you could see on the replay that this machine was in perfect form all the way through. The only real problem is that Ernie had a little bit too much speed on this particular landing as the machine compressed violently. But still, a phenomenal performance. His balance was absolutely impeccable. I think we're going to be hearing an awful lot more in the future about Ernie Adams. When we return, we'll get a chance to see the first female human bomb, Allison Bly. Plus, of course, the U.S. Opera Association's Unlimited. Well, coming out onto the floor of the Houston Astrodome, something that's going to be probably just as wild as the young man we just saw. This is the lovely Allison Bly, the only woman currently in the United States or anywhere in the world. Bly laying in the middle of the debris down there. We can see that much. It looks like she's breathing. And indeed, it looks like, with the exception of the effects of the concussion, Allison Bly has survived without a scratch. Like I said, it is no small explosion. Tremendous blast. Paramedics with her right now. Indeed, the camera crew is moving in. We should have an up-close look at Allison and the effects of the explosion in this minute. Looks like she's okay. And the crowd gives her a round of applause. Pretty incredible, Shelley.
It's a heck of a way to make a living. Whoa. But you gotta love it.
Tremendous job. And like I said, you're going to be hearing an awful lot more about Allison Bly and future stunt events. Tremendous job. Here on the slow motion, you'll get a chance to see the tremendous effects of that explosion. She gets thrown around in there, Shelley. No question about it. She gets blown quite a bit clear of her original starting position. This is the tractor tire or unlimited category. Shelley, these guys are not restricted to any size tire or any engine modification. They can basically do what they want.
And we're going to see a little bit different performance out of these cars than we saw with the mud bogs earlier.
It's true. These machines are much, much heavier than the super modified category we saw. We've been looking at 2,000-pound, 2,500-pound machines. These machines weigh 4 and 5 times as much. This is J.R. Metcalf from Tyler, Texas, with his 1977 Ford F-250 he calls the Texas Turkey. And how about an 8,000-pound vehicle? And blasting across the finish line in tremendous time. Now remember, this is an 8,000-pound truck, not a 2,000-pound or 1-ton lightweight, an 8,000-pound piece of equipment.
So the strategy is a little bit different than we saw with the mud bogs earlier.
Not only are they not restricted to engine type, but they're allowed to put as many motors as they want in this thing. This particular vehicle has not one, but two 429 wedge Ford motors, one in front of the driver and one in the bed. On the slow motion replay, you can see those 60-inch tall Rice and Kane tires, manufactured by B.F. Goodrich, plowing through the mud. Remember, these things are driving through the mud, not over it. The elapsed time for the first driver out in the unlimited category, J.R. Metcalf, leads the tractor tire division now with an elapsed time of 3.32 seconds. Unlimited category, so much different than the super modified division. These are Rice and Kane tractor tires manufactured by B.F. Goodrich. As a matter of fact, they are used in rice paddies and cane paddies in water for tractors to drive around the rice paddies to do the harvesting and stuff. And they have turned out to be tremendously strong mud racing tires for these exceptionally heavy vehicles. However, with no tire restrictions, they can run a tire as big as they need to be. And as you can see, they make monsters out of these mud trucks.
It's one of the few pieces of equipment a driver can invest in that will probably last the lifetime of the car. These tires have been known to last most drivers 3 to 5 years.
No question that they will stay up all year long without any trouble. This is Don Hetrick from Nacogdoches, Texas, who has campaigned all across the U.S. of the U.S. Auto Association Trail, the machine he calls rambunctious. Now, of all things, this is no Chevy or Ford. This is a 1976 Dodge Ram truck with a 500 cubic inch Keith Black Racing Engines Chrysler Hemi engine. The machine using a 727 Chrysler automatic transmission, better known as a torque plate. And like I said, it is no lightweight. These machines are a lot heavier than anything we've seen. 4,900 pounds on this short bed Dodge. Excellent run! Bouncing all through the shutdown area. It's a lot of sparks coming out of the rear end at the finish line. But the narrow chops and section Dodge makes easily one of the strongest efforts you could ever ask for one of these category of machines. Remember, the super modified class that we saw before skims over the mud. These guys, because of the incredible weight of these vehicles, fall automatically to the bottom of the pit and have to drive through the mud. Not across the top, but through it. Watch as the tires go almost straight down almost immediately, at least the rear tires in this case. And now he has to do his driving across this pit. Don Hetrick goes through at 2.61 seconds. Look at the bounce at the finish line. The machine coming completely out of the mud. But that elapsed time, Shelley, is one of the best we've ever seen for this category.
And it's good enough to put him into first place.
Tremendous run, 2.61 seconds. Well, I'll tell you, one thing about the tractor tire category, you see machines that are truly unlimited in every sense of the word. And here is a classic example. From Luskin, Texas, this is Craig Knight, a brand new entry in the U.S. Auto Association Trail. How about a Chevy Monza station wagon, Monza Town Coupe wagon? Craig Knight behind the wheel, his first ever U.S. Auto Association event appearance. Leaves the starting line, 8,000 pounds going through the mud, and a good ride considering the weight of the machine and not the best possible starting line launch. And Craig Knight may indeed be able to slide into the 3-second zone with that particular effort, and that would keep him competitive with the leader, Shelley.
Well, and if he's new at this, I think he did a darn good job.
It's one of the first times this machine has ever been in a mud pit, brand new for this season. A wild piece of equipment, though. Here's the slow motion replay. You can see it moving around a little bit on the starting line. Look, you can look right up through the body and see Craig Knight working away at the steering wheel and the throttle and the automatic transmission. Makes it through at 3.28 seconds. 3.28 seconds. That's an excellent attempt. In fact, it's good enough for the number 2 spot, Shelley.
Way to go, Craig.
On the starting line, an awesome piece of equipment, a 1976 Chevy Love Truck. By Greg Anthony. An excellent run. The tractor tire machines are flying here at the Astrodome. On the slow motion replay, look at this thing. 5,500 pounds airborne at the finish line and coming down hard in those ruts. And here it is, the other half of the Nacogdoches, Texas Anthony family racing team. This is Mike Anthony. The machine called Outlaw 1. Believe it or not, a 30-year-old logger during the week. During the weekends, he runs this 5,000-pound 69 Chevy Fleet side.
He must be a damn good logger, because I haven't seen a single tree here in Houston.
The Outlaw number 1 sits patiently on the starting line. The mark to beat is Mike's brother Greg at 2.57 seconds, and this comes down to sibling rivalry.
Well, I think that if anybody were to beat Greg's record, he'd want it to be his brother Mike.
I'll tell you, 2.57 seconds is within 0.15 of a second of the quickest run on a 100-foot-long pit we've ever seen in the unlimited category. An amazing piece of equipment. Here's brother Mike trying to outdo Greg sideways and up on two wheels, and he actually had to back out of the throttle to keep all four wheels on the ground, and that will probably keep Mike from grabbing the #1 spot from his brother Greg in Outlaw #1.
He had some serious ruts to try to get himself out of.
One thing's for sure, because these machines sink immediately to the bottom of the pit, 36 inches down, they will make ruts like you've never seen before. Well, Mac Anthony at 3.11 seconds is only 0.03 of a second behind his brother and only 0.11 of a second behind the leader Dan Hattrick. We're back at the Houston Astrodome in Texas for the Championship Demolition Derby finale. This is Brett Kepner along with Shelley Herman. And Shelley, we've got some of the finest drivers in the country in this final round. 26 cars. Chryslers, GM cars, Buick, Chevrolets, Pontiacs, Fords, Mercurys, Lincoln Continentals, even Cadillacs in this battle.
And they're all beautiful cars.
They are. These are some of the best-looking cars we've ever seen. Look at number 75 shooting across at 30 miles an hour for the first hit. And this is going to be a traffic jam and a half with 26 different vehicles going at it. Like I said, Fords, Chevrolets, Pontiacs, Buick, few Chrysler products of all things, including early 1970s Dodge Dart of all things are out there. And even a Cadillac or two. There's the classic demo car of choice by most of the nation's campaigners. The mid-1970s model GM or Ford station wagon. 4,400-pound machines were built incredibly strong. And you know, Shelley, it's still kind of interesting to point out that back in the mid-1960s, the Demo Derby Sanctioning Associations made a few rules that still hold true today. And one of those is the fact that you are not allowed to use a mid-1960s year Chrysler Imperial in demo derbies. Reason for that is that they were one of the strongest cars ever made, and they proved in demo derbies around the country to be literally indestructible.
What year was that again? Any
of the early, say 1960 through 1966 Chrysler Imperials, which, by the way, quite a few of them came with Chrysler Hemi engines, so they had a lot of power, as well as one of the strongest frames ever built in Detroit, and those cars are still, to this day, illegal for demo derby racing. Right now, however, it's just a matter of finding out who or which driver in which car will end up showing form that will keep them on the top as we weed out the field. Right now, it's simply a matter of knocking off as many cars as one driver possibly can. And we talked earlier about the ganging up technique at the beginning of a demolition derby that usually puts out at least half the field.
Well, I would think that, I mean, if it was my strategy, I would think you'd want to lay low right now. It seems like everybody's just looking for a piece of something right now.
Well, if you look down there on the field, you will see that there are quite a few machines hanging out around the outer edges of the circle playing field, as it were. And many of them are indeed waiting for just that, a clear hit that they know that they could put somebody else out. They're not going to waste the equipment unless they have to at this point. There's about the cleanest machine out there, the number 30 Chevrolet wagon called the Bandit of Pete Sagmiller has so far really taken not one hit to the front end. He and Danny Silence right behind him in the number 79 machine have both done a tremendous job. Boy, there's the ultimate squeeze play with the number 51 Chevrolet of Emmett Alford being in the middle of the sandwich there. Professional demolition derby drivers. These are not amateurs. These are the best of the business. And we've got a car on fire big time. And that will cause a red flag situation. And it was the number 7 entry of Frelinghausen that we were just watching with an engine fire. That was oil smoke coming up from underneath the hood. The oil finally igniting on the exhaust manifolds with the safety crews right there immediately. Now that's you there, Russ Richards trying to do it. Oh, tremendous fire. Tremendous fire. Can't identify the car. It was that big of a fireball. Still 8 or 9 cars moving. There you see the number 62 machine of Paul Durrett still doing well. Look at that. A virtually spotless front end on that particular machine. And we've got another engine fire, or at least a little bit of a fire coming out of the pipes of the pink number 77 of Dwayne Blaylock. And we've got a car going over. Unbelievable. We've got a car on its side. Danny Silence is the man who put it on his side, but we can't identify the car. Look at the radiator bursting. Silence makes one last hit. A lot of steam out of the engine compartment of Billy Umford's number 17. Silence may be lining up for the very last hit. That's it. It's over. And Danny Silence wins the monster trucks as Matt